Utah Olympic Park, the venue for the 2012, the 19th Olympiad, the Winter Games. And a decade on, we are back again for World Cup action. It's the second stop of the Viessmann FIBT World Cup Tour. And on Saturday, we have men's skeleton and the four-man bobsleigh. Hello, everybody. I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me, Canadian slider Melissa Hollingsworth. We're ready for the second and deciding heat in the men's skeleton. And Mel, this is going to be too tough to call.
It is. Finally, we're getting some races, real races. 600ths apart is what Martins is, ahead of Tretyakov, tied with Krokl. And we've got Frank Rommel kicking us off here in the fourth place finish after run one.
Well, Rommel started a long way in the backfield. He was way outside the top 20 starters after being disqualified last week. Dropped him right down the draw, made the best of the ice conditions, and set a great competitive time.
And here's Tretyakov, the push monster from Russia. He's been the winner, 3 times in the last 4 or 5 World Cups here in Park City. So we expect a big push from him on the second heat and to be right up here vying for that gold medal.
Well, you're right. The only man to beat him on Park City in the last 5 seasons is now coaching, Zach Lund of the USA. So, can Tretyakov do it? Well, he's 600ths away from the lead, but so too is Alexander Krokl, the young German.
Yes, aerodynamic form. He's lean, he's tall, and obviously on wonderful equipment from Germany. Fast, speed demon.
Well, still suffering as a legacy of injury during the summer. The man who we crowned Superman last year is still on his winning streak. Martin Stukurs leads, but 600ths of a second? Well, that is less than the blink of an eye. This still could go either way.
Yeah, and ding ding, there we go. We've got a race on our hands.
Wow. Well, Martin Stukurs knows that he has got some tough competition. Not bad enough, he has Krokl and Tretyakov breathing down his neck, but Rommel ramped himself right into the frame as well. Thomas Stukurs, who was second last weekend, probably not going to be on the podium. The fast 20 from our first heat go, last to fast, so we will kick off with GB slider Ed Smith. Head first, Ed didn't have the best of first runs on his introduction to this Park City track. There's Alex Krokl, he'd be one of the last to go. And Melissa, of course, getting yourself warmed up and peaked ready for your time on the ice is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, the last 10 minutes of your warm-up for your nervous system is the most critical part to make sure that everything's firing, the muscles are stimmed for the critical part of this whole run is the start, which there's the master of it all right there, Alexander Tretyakov from Russia.
Yeah, the face furniture, not a Movember edition. He's going for the full grizzly backwards look. Yeah, you got to keep interested between the heats, right?
Yeah.
So here we go, 20 down to 1. Ed Smith of Great Britain will kick off the action, and there are some very close battles as well within these top 20 sliders, so we could still see a lot of changes around. You saw Olympic champion John Montgomery returning to competition this season after warming himself up in the booth with me yesterday calling the women's race. So Melissa, I'm sure, will be kind to him as he was to her. 5.9 degrees, the air temperature is climbing, blanket of cloud overnight, just a little bit of rain overnight, didn't freeze. Ice is down at -1, a little frosty in the run, and Melissa could still see some changes.
Yeah, it's interesting conditions with the moist air and the humidity. It creates that frost. It's very different from training. So these guys are struggling here in this race with their equipment choices.
Kicking our competition off is Ed Smith of Great Britain, and he just wanted to say hello to Jess and Dan and to baby Isaac, who arrived this morning, our youngest skeleton fan. He's not keeping everybody too far awake. Well, he had a 4:75 getaway in the first heat, 10th fastest, and he's matched that exactly.
Ooh, a little bit of trouble there. He had quite a bit of height on the entry of 6B. He handled it very well. He has to be quiet going through this labyrinth. We do not want to see any movement on his sled. Over that little bit of a hill, it's a -G going into corner 11. Smooth run so far by Ed. We'll have to see how the ice conditions have changed from heat 1 to 2.
Definitely tidied up corner 6, much less wavy, and it was here that he had problems on the straight. That's much nicer as well. 1:22.1, carries good speed, and at the line a 50.51, and that is 84 hundredths quicker than his first heat. I beg your pardon, 44 hundredths quicker than his first heat, so that's a big improvement, finding half a second on such a short ice chute. Well, he was 20th after the first heat. That should move him up a little.
Look at here, he must have gone late into corner 6 because he went right up into the roof, down to the belly. He's working hard. His legs were spread. You can see he's steering the sled. The sleds are flexible. It's a steel frame with a fiberglass pan, and that's how we steer them, with the pressure of their shoulders and our knees. Sometimes you'll see a toe come out if you're in a lot of trouble.
He's a tall guy, long, lean frame, quite narrow shoulders, 6 foot, 198 pounds, 90 kilos for those of you who deal with new money. So an ideal height. Well, the maximum weight for the sled with athlete, 115 kilos in the men's game. And like the women, has to fit into the same box. The women use a slightly smaller all-up weight and a slightly lighter sled. An interesting Darth Vader blue visor there for Matthias Guggenberger. Often you see a yellowish tint to cut down on the glare. He's gone with this blue. I'm not seeing a blue visor. You use a blacked out one, don't you?
Yes, mine's black. And I understand the blue, though, because it does brighten things up a little bit so you can have a clear view of those entries.
481 getaway. He was 484 in the first heat. He knows he can move up if he tidies his act up.
Look at his form. He's quiet on his sled. He uses slight toe coming out of 4. He wants to make sure he doesn't go too early into 5 and hit that bump. He was late into 6. He's steering pretty hard here.
He started a fraction behind Ed Smith, now tying with him. 127.1, a little slower than the British slider.
Hear that ticking on the ice. That's his chin dragging on the ice. The G-force, about 4 to 5 gravitational forces, is what we feel when we go through these corners.
A lot of scraping down at the bottom of the track. 120.2, 2 kilometers an hour down, so he's not going to close. And that means shake of the head from coach Martin Rettel, the track record holder here. And Ed Smith stays in the lead. Head first, Ed. Like most of the sliders, if you want to follow the action away from the track, you can on the FIBT website, and you'll find that most of these sliders, skeleton and bobsled, are on Twitter as well. So you get a really good insight into what happens away from this minute of stardom.
Fell off that corner a little bit. You can see his legs kind of swing out to the side. He's coming out of corner 10. Look at that bump, and he's going sideways a little bit. He's trying to keep his sled going straight, but it's pretty difficult once it heads into the opposite direction.
So Ed Smith of Great Britain, our race leader from Matthias Guggenberger. Next up, Spaniard Ander Mirambel, trains with Espanyol, the other Barcelona football club, and spends a lot of time working with their players in the gym. And of course, the summer is perhaps the most important training time, because Mel, once you get on tour, I guess, you know, you're racing, traveling, training, there's not a lot of gym time.
No, you're just trying to maintain what you've built in the summer, and maintain your health is what the most important part is, because this season's long, and Ander has got to be ecstatic to get a second run here. He had a fantastic first run, and I always question the fact he's from Spain. Why would he want to trade in his Quicksilver wetsuit when he could be out in the ocean and come down in icy shoes here in Park City on the World Cup Tour? He absolutely loves the sport.
He was national level under 23 track and field athlete in Spain, but somehow, somewhere, got a glimpse of this stuff. And, ooh, that's familiar. Has a 100th of a second lead over Ed Smith.
Yes, and the sport is measured in hundredths of a second. It's amazing that we're seeing ties down to the 100th of a second, but at the World Cup level, you're seeing the best in the world, and everybody's very competitive.
This is a nice looking drive from Ander Mirambel.
Very smooth, even though he might be really excited because he's having a second run. Great control on the track. He's staying calm. Let's see if he can get through the low point here. Stay off the wall. Oh, he's going up.
300s. This could all evaporate in a heartbeat. Will he be in front? No, just a fraction behind. Coach Mickey Grumberger, who now is coaching the Swiss, also has Ander under his arm. Ed Smith stays in the leader box. Well, you know, Ander last year really consolidating his knowledge of some of these tracks. Now it's no longer enough. He's not focusing on making the top 20. Now he wants to climb the top 20. Everybody's got to be ambitious.
Exactly. I set those goals, and that's what you're competitive. Watch him come out of 14, a little bit too much height. He drifts over to the right wall. He's going to hit this wall going uphill against the wall with that friction. That's where he lost the lead.
Well, we've been talking all the way through this weekend about having to not steer. That's what he was trying to do, but the flop off 14 just punched him across the track. Knocked the wind out of his sails as well, I should think. Shinsuke Tayama of Japan next up, 17th after the first heat, and he was getting on for 0.2 of a second in front of Ed Smith, our current race leader. managed by the legendary Katsuhiro Koshi, who holds the Nijitech sled at the top. It's a very Japanese setup. They have their own sleds, a very Japanese team, clearly. There is your leader, head first Ed Smith.
There you go.
So both of the Japanese sliders making it into the 20.
He chooses to use the left groove. There's two grooves cut up at the top of the track that's the width of a bobsled. The skeleton or sleds are not as wide, so you can have the choice of using the right or the left groove. It usually has to do with what side of the sled that you run on, or maybe just how that groove will guide you into that first corner. That's why you'll make that choice.
Good initial inertia, 85 kilometers an hour. 0.08 of a second of his first round advantage still remains. 27.4, that's a whisker quicker than the race leader was at that stage, and he's just starting to creep away.
Had some problems going into corner 11 there. Yes, exactly what I suspected. Flopped off 13. It's going to be hard for him to make up any time in this uphill section.
Gets a decent run, 1:19 though, 3 kilometers an hour too slow. He'll drop back. Fourth place with a 50.92. And Smith stays in the leader's box. The next couple of athletes are very close together as well, so Ed may still lead for a little longer. A big day yesterday at Park City for the home fans and especially the home athletes. Women's skeleton race. Well, the reigning world champion, Katie Uhlaender. But it's been 5 years since she's won a women's skeleton World Cup race. She ended that drought in dramatic fashion. Second after the first heat, she won by the closest measurable margin, just 1/100th of a second. But hey, Melissa Hollingsworth, a win's a win, however small the margin.
Very, very true.
Next up at the top of the track is Kyle Tress of the USA. Third out of the start hut, and with this very individual starting technique, double-handed to single, back to double.
It is, and it's an improvement from his first heat. He was an 83, and now he's a 479. He wants to try and maximize as much power off that block, using both hands and all that force. Very short start here in Park City. You don't have much time to gain.
An 83 was 20th fast start, a 79 would be 10th or 12th, so that's a big step up in competitive performance.
We're seeing Kyle's legs kind of moving around a little bit. He doesn't seem as comfortable on his sled as what we saw him with Placid with the 5th place finish. Hopefully he can maintain his lead.
He's lost a lot of speed. He was 2 kilometers an hour down. He's just falling out the back door here. Something is drastically wrong with... Well, he's making mistakes, but it seems to be more fundamental. He's just got no speed.
No, he was not very comfortable on his sled at all. You could see movement, and you cannot have that type of form here on this Park City finesse type track.
Well, we talked in the first heat about predicting the weather and making your runner choice long before the race gets underway. It's been cold, crisp, sunny for the last few days. Today it's a bit frosty and a bit foggy, so maybe the runner choice was just for different ice.
Yes, and you know, we saw him 5th place in Lake Placid last week, and now this disappointing race here in Park City. But the tracks are all different. That's the name of the game. There's a home track advantage at every track, but there's different styles. Lake Placid, it feels like you're in a washing machine when you're going down, and here you have to be smooth and quiet, almost in that sedative type state.
Well, you wonder how much difference a metal runner can make. Well, it's the difference between having a slick dry weather tyre in the rain or a wet weather tyre in the rain. It can make a world of difference. Ed Smith of Great Britain leads, and now Dave Swift, his teammate, is up on the blocks. He was 4th fastest at the start, a 4:69. So after this, GB will lead. Yeah, well, it's a shoe-in. GB Skeleton will have the lead after this slide, no matter what happens. And the chances are they'll go 1-2.
You only have 30 seconds to get across that timing eye off the block as soon as they say the track is clear. So let's hope he has no troubles here. He has to pull his sled back because he is definitely taking his time to get off the block.
You see he's got enormous leg speed, 160-metre sprinter from Eastbourne on England's south coast, and a 4.66. That's another rocket sledge getaway.
Wow, very impressive from Swift. Lives up to his last name. A little bit of a bump there going into corner 5. And you can see when he comes into corner 11 here from 10, we're going to have a look at his visor. It's an apricot orange type visor, and he's using that because it's a little bit cloudy out and the ice is white, and it's just going to help with his vision. We're going head first. We do use our vision to see this track as we're sliding at 130 kilometers an hour.
Well, the other thing, of course, is you're coming from shade to glare to shade to glare, so your eye can't adjust fast enough. 4 tenths up, 120.8 kilometers an hour. He's going to lose a couple of those tenths, maybe. 3 tenths up, 50.51. Ed Smith's time, 50.51. Only their first heat difference between them. The two British sliders had an identical run there in the second heat, and he is pumped with that. It is GB 1-2.
Yes, and the British program is extremely strong. Since 2002, in the women's program, they have won an Olympic medal every Olympic Games. So suspect that these guys will definitely be in the running for Sochi.
Absolutely right, and if they can continue to build up the speed, the knowledge that comes with ice time will just help them preserve it down towards the bottom of the run. So Dave Swift leads. There he is in the leader's box. Swift by name, Swift by nature. Although most Swifts have very spindly legs. Kristen Bromley next up. Ooh, GB 1-2-3. This is where it should now start snowing. Thank you very much. That would be very handy. Kristen Bromley, for so many years in his career, has been on the wrong end of that, setting a great time, and then the snow would come and the race would be wiped out. Let's see what he can produce. 14th after the first heat.
Kristen's been battling a hamstring injury for a lot of his career, but just before this season, he started to have some problems with it. So a 482, it's not going to be one of the strongest in the field. He's just trying to do his best. And obviously, him and his brother Richard, with the Bromley sleds that they are building, they sell them all over the world. They're trying to find the best equipment so that they have a hope of winning an Olympic medal in Sochi.
Well, he is the customer development program, isn't he? He races them, and when they're fast enough, they'll sell on the new technology. So, yeah, he's the crash test dummy for the team. And as you say, that hamstring injury, they went training him and Shelley Rubman in Lillehammer, both pulled a hamstring there, so they're both not limping, but not at their best.
Yes, and he was back at the start, but now he's ahead. You can see that he is finding some speed here on this very short Park City track.
Nice lines, 121.3, still not the fastest down at the bottom, but it is GB 1-2-3. Bromley, Swift, Smith. Little ripple of applause there from Shelley Rudman at the top. So now the question is, who is going to do more leapfrogging? Because we're now in a really tight cluster of very close times between the athletes, and that was a much tidier second heat from Kristen.
Yes, look at, you can see the rain, snow coming down. That's definitely going to affect the track as we come closer to the faster sleds.
Well, for those who have gone early, anything that slows the track marginally is an advantage, at least for them. That makes good reading for British fans. Kristen Bromley ahead of Dave Swift and Ed Smith, and not an awful lot of time between the three of them on this second heat. Next up at the top of the ice, Hiro Takahashi of Japan, the younger of the two Japanese athletes, just 28 years old. Sliding for 5 years now. Both Japanese athletes had a really big season in World Cup racing last year, really came of age. And Katsuhiro Koshi now, the man responsible for developing their sleds.
Smooth load on his sled. 473, that's competitive, that's in there. They spent quite a bit of their preseason in Canada. They were in Calgary and they were in Whistler. They had some troubles last year in the Whistler World Cup, and they just wanted to get those demons out of the way. Ooh, and a little bit too early into 5. You can see his whole body lift up a little bit. A rough entry that's going to set him up for a little bit of a rough labyrinth here, doing quite a bit of work.
On 27.7, good velocity. 79.5 miles an hour. They will barely lose any speed at all the way down the track.
Fantastic form. We always call it the Japanese bullet style. They're just really tight to their sled, put their head down and go.
Just a whisker behind, little slower than Kristen Bromley as well now. Will he be in between the British sliders? He is in second place. So Kristen Bromley leads, Hiro Takahashi second, Dave Swift ahead of Ed Smith third and fourth. Well, just in front of Hiro, we had a tie for 11th place in the first heat. He picked up a big start here, Mel.
He did, with the second fastest start so far. You can see that snow and ice kicking up. It's difficult to be able to grab onto that ice. I don't know if we're going to see a faster start than what Tretiakov did his first round. I don't know if he'll be able to improve on that.
Well, sprinting head first, downhill on ice. Yeah, go and try it in the winter and see how comfortable that feels. Oh, yeah, and bend over so your fingertips are 3 inches off the ice as well. If there is a more ungainly athletic sprint, that I have yet to see it. Yesterday in the booth, fulfilling all his obligations to the team, you know what I mean, and today on ice. Tied for 11th after the first heat, John Montgomery, and explaining to us yesterday that he is now developing and building his own sled. So like Kristen Bromley, this is about the end game and not the intermediate steps.
Yes, 470, John's been working really hard this last summer on his start and getting that explosive speed. He's had some problems with his sled this week, so for him to be sitting in 11th, that is fantastic. Oh, but he just had too much of an angle going into corner 5, a big bump. We'll have to see how that plays out here in this lower portion of the track.
127.4, decent speed though.
He's hanging on to that lead, a little bit late going into 11. Let's see if he can get clean going into 12. Nice line, very nice line.
The battle of the sled developer owner drivers. Kristen Bromley leads, John Montgomery is just slipping a little more. Good exit here, 120.5, Kristen was 121, he goes behind. So Kristen Bromley leads, and in fact John Montgomery slides down to third, but he was saying to us yesterday, actually it might be an achievement to make the second heat to get into the top 20. Well, he certainly exceeded that expectation. Manages to get out without the uncomfortable barrel roll in the finish zone as well.
Yeah, that was, you can see, like, obviously this is not John. He slides much better than this. This is a sled issue right now, but you have to take some risks if you want to reap the reward, and that is what John is doing.
I had to get the sled welded up after it cracked the frame during training, and the speed, Ed Smith, head first Ed, 122.1, still fastest down at the bottom of the track. Well, these are the pains, the growing pains, let's say, of developing your own kit. And the reason he's doing it, rather than using the SAIT sleds that a lot of the other Canadians are doing, is because he wants something tailored exactly how he wants it. And in this sport, like many others, to be at the top, perfectionism just runs through every fibre of your body.
Have a look at that weather right now. Everybody's got their hoods up. The rain's coming down, or snow. I can't exactly see what the texture is.
It's a little between the two. I think it might be more rain than snow, which is probably better, but it is now starting to fall a little heavier. Now, this is where the jury are going to have to start thinking about whether conditions are equal. It's not about whether they're good. 478 getaway for Matt Antoine, as we documented in the first heat. The man from Prairie-du-Chien, Wisconsin, is still struggling to recover from summer surgery.
Yes, on his knee. So usually he's much faster, but he had to make that decision so that he could be at his best, pain-free, fast, strong by Sochi. That's the goal, having that opportunity to win an Olympic medal. All these World Cups get you there, but the ultimate goal is on that podium.
Again, like John Montgomery developing the sled, it's developing the body. It's the end game, and everybody's focus is Russia 2014.
Matt is tall and clean, aerodynamic. This is a home track for him. Let's see if he can hang on to this lead. 900ths.
He could just do it just about quick enough. It's going to be down to the 100th of a second. Oh, he does hang on to it. 50.40. He takes the lead for the USA with 10 sleds still to come. Kristen Bromley in second. Hiro Takahashi in third place. Well, Mel, what will this little bit of precipitation be doing to the track?
Oh, you can see the lines in the track of the ice. It's creating frost, and when there's frost, that means you have to break through it. It is actually slowing people down, or you can get stuck in a line, and maybe you want to move over a little bit earlier into the corner, but you're not going to be able to because it is so sticky.
So it's effectively like trapping you in tram lines. You follow the line that somebody else has left, whether you want to or not. Matt Antoine of the USA leads from Kristen Bromley of Great Britain, and Hiro Takahashi. The weather may be on the turn. We have 10 to go here in Park City to decide the medals.
Takahashi from Japan, 141.03. Those are your top 3 finishers as of now. This is combined total for runs 1 and 2. We still have half the field remaining. Montgomery from Canada, Monty sitting unofficially in 4th. Swift and Smith 5 and 6. Mirabel 7. Guggenberger 8. And Tayama from Japan and Tress making up the 10th spot. We start with the field of 28. Only 20 sleds advance to the second final run. Only 20 sleds come to the second final run. Now we reverse that order. So your leaders are still coming up. Now we're in the process of transporting all the athletes. Everything's getting locked and loaded. We're just seconds away from kicking off after a small break here. Generally, the top sliders are going into curve 4 around 52, 53 miles an hour. They come out of curve 4, approach curve 5, that's cut road, taking straight away to curve 6. Curve 6 pulls upwards of 5 Gs. If you're thinking about it, after riding a bobsled, that's the one that's going to get you. 5 Gs. The second speed test is the exit curve 6 going to 7, in excess of 80 miles an hour. That's what we're seeing now. 78, 79. Seconds away from kicking off. Final 10 sleds to run.
Utah Olympic Park, Viessmann World Cup number 2. And that's why team coats have hoods. There is occasionally a little bit of precipitation, sometimes snow, occasionally rain, and that's what we have at the moment, halfway through the second heat of the men's skeleton race. Matt Antoine of the USA is our race leader with 10 to go, and there is a little bit of drizzle in the air. I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me is Canada's #1 woman slider, Melissa Hollingsworth. Johnny Fairbairn, your teammate on the ice. What's he going to find as he comes down this track, Melissa?
He's been training great all week. He is lean and tall, aerodynamic, got his strength of 479. It's much better than his first run. Every 100th counts on his short Park City track.
Just going to put him up into the top 12 starts. As I say, that's such a short ice chute that 100th at the top will really help you at the bottom.
Yes, and he had a little bit of problems there in corner 5, but he handled it very well going into 6. But 300's back. Looks like he's slightly late into corner 11. But a great line going into 12. You just don't want to have that bump on the entry. Very smooth run. These guys are only separated by 100ths of a second. You're going to see them leapfrog and drop back and move forward. Now he gains 100th. What's going to happen when he goes across the finish line?
Well, he had decent speed, enough to overhaul Antoine. Not quite. In fact, a 1/10 of a second slower on that slide than Matt Antoine, so his first heat advantage of 500s did not carry him through. Johnny Fairbairn drops into 2nd place. Kristen Bromley lies 3rd with 9 sleds still to come. And Melissa, tough times for the jury now. They've really got to study every run and see if the ice is remaining fair for all the competitors.
Yes, if somebody has gone off in 15th rank, but they make it up into the podium position just because of the time of the snow and the rain coming down and slowing it down, they may have to make a call.
Well, at the moment, they are happy to let it continue. It is a very light misty drizzle, but of course it's falling onto very cold ice, so it can change the nature of the track. Next up, Sergei Chudinov started 28 start draw, last man in the field. and only the fast 20 go through. He put in a really excellent run. Third quickest start, really blew it out of the blocks and drove into 9th place.
He definitely did not have the advantage on the first run of his start drop, but let's see if he can clean up that corner 14 because he was having a great run until that point.
He's such a bright, smiley individual and so quick off the start as well. 4.67, another epic getaway.
Very impressive, and he's very quiet on his sled. I suspect that a lot of these athletes probably increase the rock in their runner, so that's the bow. That means that less surface will be of their sled and the runner will be touching the ice with these frosty conditions. They're going to be looking for a little bit more speed. That could change the way that the sled drives too, so it's a risk to take, but you have to do that in a sport that's measured in hundredths of a second.
Listen to him, you compare him to some of the others, you can barely hear him going by.
So quiet. He's on that Duker sled just like Martins and Thomas. And you can see they're barely doing anything else. See if he can get there. Oh, a little bit of a drop out of corner 14. Did the same thing first run.
Quarter-second advantage, 1700s, 50.35 slide. His first run, 50.35 seconds. So he's finding the track to be just as fast. I hate to see it when athletes put their hands out in front of them to slow down. There's so many rough little bits of ice in that outrun that kicked up by the bobsleds. You want to go breaking a wrist or slicing your hand open, and both are equally possible.
Yes, look at this start. Lots of power, long legs. He has contact with the ice at all times, a smooth load. That's why you saw that 4.67.
The last 3 sliders have come down within 0.05 of a second. 50.35 for Sergei, 50.40 for Johnny Fairburn and Matt Antoine. So the track is certainly consistent at the moment. Well, Christopher Grother, the young rookie in the German lineup this season, second in last year's Junior World Championships. Started ski jumping at the age of 6. Went to Sports High School and was converted to skeleton at the age of 16. Now he's going to try and overhaul our race leader, Sergei Chudanov of Russia.
Christopher pushed a 4.75 in the first heat. Let's see if he can improve on that here in the second heat. 4.74, 1/100th, but like I said earlier, every 100th counts.
It seems that the top of the track is not frosting up too badly. The start area is covered over, but you know, with the moisture in the air, you can never tell.
Yeah, and you can see he's having difficulties in the first few corners there, where he was going too early, brushing the wall. He just cannot afford those little tiny mistakes on a finesse-type track like Park City.
Waving up and down in 6th, the top of Albert Alley. He's just dropped a fraction behind Chudanov. 2 really strong runs.
Yes, we'll have to see if he can find any time. I do not expect him to be able to make up any ground going down through Low Point here, going uphill with not as much speed.
Ooh, dreadful speed, I'm afraid. So he could drop 3 or 4 places. Yeah, 10th fastest run. He drops 5 spots behind Kristen Bromley. So it's Chudanov, Antoine, Fairburn, the top 3. 7 to go.
But that's what happens. This is only his second World Cup. You have to learn, you have to get that experience so that you can be at the top of your game when World Championships or the Olympic Games come around.
Well, it's not just experience of the track per se, but also of what weather changes do to ice kind of in general, I suppose.
And just that competition, being at this elite level, it is definitely a mental game. And it's you and your sled in the track, but you can be your worst enemy in situations like this.
Girl who knows this track very well, Leanne Parsley, Olympic silver medalist in 2002, and it's strange now that skeleton has only been an Olympic sport for just a decade. Goodness me, and still very young. Of course, there were 2 earlier Olympics that had skeleton, 28 and 48, both in St. Moritz, but that was much bigger, heavier Cresta run sleds. Next up at the top of the ice is John Daly. 7th start, 7th finish in the first heat.
Daly had his best World Cup finish ever, 4th place home track at Lake Placid last week. Let's see if he can move up some spots here in Park City. 4.69. Wow. Great. 300s faster than his first run. Just needs to rely on all these runs that he's had here in Park City. It's his home track. That could be his advantage. He needs to make sure that he's quiet on his sled and very subtle steers.
2200 top on Sergei Chudanov.
Smooth run so far, great form. We steer these sleds with pressure points with our shoulders and our knees. We don't want to see the athletes moving at all. That means that they're doing a lot of work. And so Daly is having a fantastic run at this point.
2200s up from the first heat. He's still got 2100s in hand. Exit of 14 is going to be kill or cure, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's great. He's going to hold his spot.
Yes, he is. Great run, 50.25. That's a tenth of a second quicker than Chudanov. That's a very good second run from John Daly. 7th after the first heat. That might creep him up towards the tail of the medals. Yeah, happy with that, and so he should be. And helping with the sled, Zach Lund, the last man who wasn't called Alexander Tretiakov to win a World Cup race on this track.
Look at that leg speed. Big quads, powerful. That's why he's the fast start.
Sit on the fences. Goes for the mums and dads as well, and also please refrain from using flash.
So powerful, John Daly. I tell you, he's 5'10". He doesn't look like a 5'10" athlete. He's such a powerful man. He looks much tinier. Cassie Horesh there, and Sarah Reed, our winner last weekend. Your teammates up at the top. Going to make some noise for the Canucks. And first of whom, Eric Nielsen now, 6th after the first heat. Faceman having a really good first run. Has he still got the iPod in? He's bobbing away there.
Yes, I really hope we can see him put some consistent runs together. Last year, you know, first year on World Cup Tour, you have one great run, one bad run. So, but that's what happens when you're the rookie and experience pays off. So let's see him put two together here, Eric. He's worked so hard on his dryland training with our coach, Kelly Forbes, this summer. He's had some very competitive starts. A 471, that's great. 200s faster than his first start.
If you can start top 6 in this man's field with the likes of Dukos and Tresikov, you know you are getting away quickly.
Yes. Nice, smooth entry into 5. He's quiet going into 6. He's panning out really, really well for Eric at this point.
He was 400s up on our current leader, John Daly, from the first heat. 10th of a second now, driving away from the American. Good run.
Oh, he's having fantastic form. Everything's smooth. He had problems earlier this week in 12, and he maintains that. Wow, this is a fantastic run for Eric.
Creeping away by 100th at a time. No flop off the corner. He's got speed. He's pulling away further. This is him looking to move up in the top 6. 50.09 slide. His first heat effort, 50.09, identical to the 100th, barring the start.
No more one-hit wonders for this guy. That's as consistent as you can be. Eric's going to be so happy. His fiance at home, Heather's going to be watching and cheering, and I'm sure blowing him lots of bacios. That's lots of kisses in Italian.
Oh, okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah, this track doesn't give us any sparks or excitement, really, but when you see smooth runs like this in quiet form, that's exciting. That's exciting in the world of sliding.
You don't always have to see ice skaters fall over to appreciate the artistry, and it's the same with this. You know, you can see so evidently in skeleton compared to bobsleigh when a slider has got a good line, because there's no steering going on, there's no arms or legs moving, and that was a great run from Eric Nielsen.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to see any chicken wings flying out about in this track. It's aerodynamic form.
I don't think he has chicken wings. I'm not sure he has bat wings either. This is Thomas Dukos of Latvia, 5th after the first heat. And again, we're talking tiny margins. Our current leader, Eric Nielsen, was only 400s ahead of John Daly. Thomas Dukos was only 400s ahead of Eric, so we could see changes.
We definitely can. That's skeleton. A 464. Holy smokes, 600s faster than his first start. That's so impressive for Thomas.
Well, he was just left a little straggling by the front runners, and he said, well, hang on a minute, that's not happening. Here I come.
Well, with the rain, it very well could be pebbling slightly in that start group, which results in faster starts because there's less contact of the runner to the ice. So that may be why we're seeing some faster starts the second heat.
Also, 129.0 top speed, 80.2 miles an hour. The quickest we've seen. He's really putting in a big run here.
So smooth, just bouncing off that wall a little bit, but 123 kilometers an hour, the fastest speed we've seen.
Yeah, comfortably the quickest, 49.91. That's quicker even than his first run of 50.05. That's 1400s quicker.
Wow.
That's most impressive and tells us that he should not have been that far behind after the first heat. That's why he was disappointed with it. Yes, here's the time, then he punches the air. Because you see the overall time there at the end, you know you're in first place, you've got to be good at subtraction, and I can't tell.
Great form for Thomas, smooth load. You have to make sure that you absorb that load. You don't want to be rough there because velocity is key.
Thomas Duclos with big speed at the top, big speed at the bottom, challenging for a medal. Question is, will he get there? He was second in Lake Placid last weekend, second in our World Cup rankings as a result after the first race of the season. Now he's in the leader's box, but for how long? Frank Rommel again. Last weekend scored no points, DQ'd with weight issues after the first heat, just 200ths off the lead in Lake Placid. Came out of the backfield, started 27th of 28 start draw, and came down 4th quickest.
Yes, and that was really disappointing. It was so slight, but, you know, 100 grams, a rule's a rule. He owned up to it. It was not intentional whatsoever, but, you know, when you're on that fine line of trying to weigh 115 kilos, when you're trying to race against an Eric Nielsen, who's much heavier in his body weight, you have to try and get as close to that maximum weight as possible.
Rommel started 21st fastest with a 484. He's just pulled off a 478, so for him that's a big improvement. Another 600s, that might be the difference between getting in the medals and not.
Yes, and Rommel's he's not known for his start. It's his driving and his equipment. He's so smooth, and look at his form. You can barely see him working. Goes over that negative G, that little downhill portion, and he was smooth. There wasn't a skid. Great lines from Frank.
124.3 at the bottom of the track. 29 at the top in this heat is about where he was, but I'm not sure this is as much. No, it's not. He's not going to catch or stay in front of Thomas Duclos. He slips in the second. Oh, but look how close he got in the end. Goodness, that's insane. He came from 1300s to just 500s behind on that uphill straightaway.
He just needed about, I don't know, 100 meters more of track, and he would have edged him out.
Well, nevertheless, he scores much better than last weekend.
Exactly. Look at his form on the sled. He's low, his shoulders are down, he's quiet, he's not moving, he's letting the sled just fly.
And gold here in Park City for World Cup stock member race.
Now what he really needed, Melissa, was to get a better run than his first, but it wasn't quite on the money. Still had best speed at the bottom.
Yeah. Goes to show how much the push is an advantage here on this short Park City track.
Yes, it is, and that's what separates our front three runners from the rest of the field. The top three after the first heat covered by just 900ths of a second. The medals could go any way, and it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that this man, our current leader Thomas Duclos, could be in amongst them. And do you know what? Maybe Frank Rommel too. 3 to go here in Park City. Viessmann World Cup #2 of the men's skeleton campaign. Alexander Krukl tied with namesake Alexander Tretyakov of Russia. Who will break the deadlock?
Krukl again has that perfect body type for skeleton. He's long, he's lean, he's aerodynamic, and a 473. That's 400ths faster than his first start.
He knows he's giving away a lot of time to the 2 remaining sliders, a couple of tenths of a second. Anything you can do to mitigate against that is solid gold.
Yes, he has to be perfect, flawless on this track to make sure he can still be in contention for a podium position.
Thomas Duclos, our leader, started quicker than him as well, eradicating his first round advantage, but he's got great speed, 80.4 miles an hour. He's just starting to creep away.
Smooth lines, but 12 did push him away a little bit. Hopefully he can maintain that lead.
1500s up at the start, it drifted away, but it is coming back. He is building on that. 123.0, not quite as quick as Duclos, but enough. Yes, 49.95 slide to take the lead of the race and guarantee himself a World Cup medal.
Very exciting for his second year to be on the World Cup Tour here, to be winning a medal in Park City in North America, where he hasn't been sliding. Doesn't have near as much experience as what he does on those European tracks.
Well, rightly happy with that. 7th place last weekend in the season opener in Lake Placid. Guarantees himself a medal here in Park City.
Look at his form, barely doing any work. His head just moving back and forth, manipulating that sled so that he can even out those pressures at the corners.
bright young talent for German sliding. Krökel, all of 22 years old, and from the Oberhof track, which again is a driving track. Jens Muller, the coach, a man who knows plenty about ice sliding in his career as well. Well, tied, equal for second place in the first heat with our current leader Alexander Krökel was Russia's rocket Alexander Tretyakov. He has won 3 of the last 4 World Cup races on this track. Nobody currently competing has beaten him in Park City.
4:56, wow, 300ths faster, and with these conditions, not that far off of his own push record of a 4:49.
Melissa Hollingsworth, that is a large part of the reason why nobody has beaten him in Park City, who's still sliding.
Yes, for sure, because he's not having the best top portion of this track. He just has to try and maintain all that speed that he created at the top.
Great speed, 128.9, just a whisker over 80 miles an hour, but we've seen a few go faster. 2700ths, just 2/10 in front of Krökel. Will he stay in front? No, he may not. It could be very close. Will Krökel lead? Oh. Alex couldn't read that one either. 50.01 slide. Melissa, that was 2/10 of a second slower than his last run.
Yes, and it goes to show, yes, your push is an advantage here, but you still have to be able to drive the track. And Krökel, he drove amazing. Tretyakov had little mistakes here and there, but it bleeds away your speed, and therefore he will not be walking away with the gold medal today. Look at this start. Look at how long his legs are in that extension, how quick his foot placement is on the ice. That's why you see start records from him everywhere we go.
He's astonishing the way he claws at the ground. It's amazing. 13th best speed down at the bottom though. It was ebbing away all the way down. No major dramas. They don't have to be major here. Now, what about this winning streak? All streaks have to finish somewhere. Is this where? Or will Martin Stukurz nurse that 600ths of a second lead? He was our first round leader in Lake Placid, held on to win by a narrow margin, just 800ths of a second. What about Alexander Krökel? 7th last weekend, he leads with just Superman left to go. 45 seconds between now and the gold medal. Who'll take it?
4:56. Wow, he almost improved by 1/10 of a second. That was astonishing. Doesn't seem like he has a torn ACL whatsoever putting up starts like that.
85.9 kilometers an hour, very quick speed, 53 miles an hour already, just in 4 short corners. Ooh, hits the wall though.
A little bit, but you know, he has a big lead. He'll be able to recover from that, stays relaxed. That's normal form we see from Martin, is that Superman form. Look at him, barely see what he's doing. He got pushed away from 12 as well. We're not used to seeing him make mistakes like this, but yet he has so much speed in his back pocket.
It's come down from 4/10 to 1900ths. He's just about got enough to make it 1/10 of a second advantage. No, even closer, 49.96. Wow, we're not seeing the 1 and 2 second margins of last year, but he wins. As we said about Katie Uhlaender, winning by 100th, it's still winning. You still got to be in front. He does it again, win number 2 of the season. And the streak goes on, what now, 14-15, and starting to lose count, but he shakes his head. That was not a great run by his high standards.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy, there you go. You see him win another World Cup race.
Well, he made it look probably easier than he felt. Look at him, he's hardly jubilant. However, Latvia wins yet again. Not since he crashed in Koenigsee in December 2011 has anyone beaten him. And even then, you could argue, he beat himself by just trying to let it fly a little too much. But for Alexander Krökel, I wish I'd had a look for that stat. Is that his first World Cup medal? He was a rookie last season. I'm trying to remember, but I don't have the stats in front of me.
I think he won a medal in Koenigsee last year. I think that was his first.
May well be right. Well, streaks finish, and 3 out of 4 of the last World Cup races have been won by Alexander Tretyakov. Martin Stuckers keeps his winning streak alive with victory here in Park City, Utah. Melissa Hollingsworth again, he knew he was under the gun, didn't he? You don't pull out a 700 start advantage over your first run when you know you're cruising.
Exactly. He's not used to being in this position just by leads of 600s. He's used to that 6/10 margin. So definitely seeing some great racing here on the men's side this season.
Yeah, you can feel the Wolfpack snapping at his heels. And every weekend, it's a different group of athletes, you know? But every weekend, so far, it's still the same smiling face on the top of the pile. So, World Cup number 2 of the season, the same winner as World Cup number 1. Martin Stuckers won by 800s last weekend, 500s this weekend over Alexander Krökel, with Alexander Trechikov again in 3rd place. Thomas Stuckers was 2nd last weekend. He's in 4th place, where John Daly was last weekend. Frank Rommel, 5th out of the backfield, gets some points on the board. Just outside the 10 for Kristen Bromley, 11th. Dave Swift and Ed Smith. I'm going to get those right before the end of the season, I promise. 15th and 16th. Carl Tress rounding out the top 20 for the USA. Well, that is Viessmann World Cup number 2 for Park City, Utah. Stay with us. We'll have words from our top 3 right after this. Park City, Utah is stop 2 of our FIBT World Cup Tour. Stop 3, Melissa Hollingsworth, home ice for you, the 2010 Winter Games at Whistler. What a track, though.
It is. It is the fastest track in the entire world, where we're reaching speeds of 145 kilometers an hour on a skeleton sled. And immediately it drops off. Like, here's corner 1. By corner 2, we are going about 80 kilometers an hour, just over fast. You can see heads get sucked down right away in corner 2. It now has to flatten out, because obviously if you're going to continue that speed, it's too fast. But there's a lot of technical parts of that track. Finesse type steering is required, and so it'll be great racing next weekend.
Well, it's definitely one of those tracks where everybody takes a big swallow before they go down for the first, well, probably for every time. Yeah. Well, World Cup number 2 here at Park City, Utah had the same winner as World Cup number 1 at Lake Placid. Totally different tracks in every way, shape or form. And yet, Martin Stuckers won them both. But Melissa Hollingsworth, for everybody else, the truth is that he is catchable. He was only just ahead. We're talking fractions rather than big margins.
We are seeing that Superman is human. He's making mistakes, and the time is showing, and it's giving the other guys a chance.
It may be Clark Kent that's leading at the moment rather than Superman, who had changed in the phone box. Martins and Thomas Ducours lead our World Cup rankings from Alexander Tretiakov and silver medalist Alexander Krökel. Well, let's catch up with our top three. Hear words from them with John Morgan.
The flowers coming in from...
No, not from me. Ciao.
Flowers are in. Okay, now Alexander Tretiakov, the Russian Rocket bronze medal. Happy?
Да, я счастлив. Третье место – это хороший результат для меня. Вот. Спасибо всем тренерам, медицинскому персоналу, кто помогали мне завоевать эту медаль. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's happy for a bronze medal. And now this guy, Alexander, your best finish ever, huh?
Yeah, I like this track. Park City is one of my favorite tracks. Yeah, I had 2 perfect runs, 2 solid starts, and everything fits together today. And yeah, I'm happy.
It's probably the first time you ever beat him in a heat too, huh?
Yeah, maybe next week we will see.
Congratulations, great finish for you. And Superman, the other gold medal, were you happy with your runs?
Not really. I think you asked this question because you know answer. Definitely, I wasn't happy with my runs. I was really happy with my start, but especially second run was not so good. But I was lucky, 500s, and I wanted to say thanks for all who helped me, for all supporters. Thank you very much. Good race.
And now you go to Whistler. You like that track?
If honestly, I don't like this track, but that's a schedule and we need to move forward.
Congratulations. See you guys next week.
There's a great phrase in sports, isn't there? The harder I train, the luckier I get. He's not lucky, but he is our winner, Martins Ducours of Latvia. Alexander Krökel, incidentally, his previous other World Cup podium, 3rd last year in the race in Altenburg. Silver medal here. And Melissa, Whistler, it's maybe not be everybody's favourite, but it is certainly going to produce some exciting racing.
It will, for sure. Tough corners, high speeds, you make a little mistake, there's big consequences in Whistler, but they've done a lot of work in Whistler to make sure that it is very safe. So people, yes, I still stand at the top of the track and take a deep breath there, but that track is getting safer and safer every year.
And still the fastest ice on the planet. We look forward to rejoining action with our Skeleton World Cup and the bobsleds, of course, in Whistler a week from now. But until then, our World Cup leader is our double race winner, Martins Ducours of Latvia. And that is it for Viessmann World Cup #2 in the men's skeleton campaign. Our North American swing continues next weekend on the west coast of Canada on the fastest ice they will encounter all year. Till then, my thanks to Melissa Hollingsworth for joining us in the booth and for great educational words of wisdom. I'm Martin Haven on behalf of the rest of the FIBT TV crew here. We'll see you later on for more action from the 4-man bobsled. And catch us with all the action from Whistler next weekend.